Good morning and welcome to Snap Judgments. This is Randy, as always. Look, I wanted to run this episode a little differently. I did pre-record an episode last night. We had Tyler come back in here from Paperwaves. He and I put together our ideal Patriots mock drafts, and we're gonna present them, compare and contrast them, talk about the different philosophies that we kind of employed going in, and some of the different assumptions as well. Um, I thought it was an interesting exercise that kind of showed different ways that the Patriots could plug holes in this roster with completely different philosophies in terms of our priorities and the way we approach this draft class. Um, so the reason I wanted to do this a little bit differently, though, is because we have a major show announcement. Now it's mostly a kind of personal life announcement, um, but it impacts the show. And so that announcement would be that yesterday I was able to land myself a good full-time daytime job. The hours are 8:30, 9 to 5, just kind of standard day business hours, which is great, but obviously conflicts with the timing of this daily show. Um, at the end of the day, obviously I have to prioritize paying bills and so forth. So this is not the end of the show, don't worry. But the show will obviously have to change in terms of timing and in terms of frequency of episode. Now, we've got just over 2 weeks left until the draft. Nope, sorry, just under 2 weeks left until the draft. And so it's basically going to impact those 2 weeks because throughout the summer it would have been slower time anyway, so it would have been, hard to put out a daily show with relevant and important information and so forth. So what's going to happen, and I haven't decided the exact timing yet or the frequency or whatever. I'm going to kind of play it by ear. I start the new job on Monday. I may very well record an episode Sunday and try and release that Monday morning. But yeah, I'm gonna kind of play it by ear, see how my schedule works, try to run 2 live shows throughout the week. Kind of what I'm thinking right now is maybe something like a Tuesday or a Wednesday night show, and then maybe a Saturday morning or day show. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Please weigh in the comments if there's a time or night or a day or something that you think would make a better timing or whatever. But if you have any input on that sort of thing, I definitely love to hear it, and I definitely love to apply it going forward from here. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the daily show. I hope that I brought some level of value um, to the way you are able to like kind of see the Patriots news cycle and your knowledge of the draft prospects and the team and so forth. And I've had a really good time doing it. And I actually had initially interviewed for this role. It was the scheduling, it was going to be a part-time role. And the scheduling was such that I was going to continue doing this show at 9 a.m. And then after I finish the show, pack it up and head to the office. But in the time between my first interview and my second interview yesterday, they had a lot of changes at the business that I was applying to, and the role that I was applying for changed. And part of that change was to become a full-time opportunity. And again, I could not turn that down. So I'm going to jump right into it on Monday, and that's that. So again, it's going to impact this show, obviously, the scheduling, the frequency. My ability to go live at 9 a.m. is not going to be a thing. But live shows, again, I will do my best to do multiple live shows leading up to the draft, and per week. And then following the draft, I'll do I'll probably pare it down to about 2 live episodes a week, and get as much as I can in there. We'll be throughout the summer looking at, getting deeper looks at the Patriots, getting looks, doing a little bit of draft review, maybe looking at tape from the guys that we did draft from last year, and then getting kind of a preview of the 2027 class also. So, like, things naturally slow down in the summer anyway. The timing's a little bit off because the draft is in just about 2 weeks, and I would have really loved to have been able to be live every morning until then. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to due to this personal life change. Again, great news for me and mine, kind of, but not the best news in terms of like show consistency and scheduling and so forth. But we'll still be here. We'll still be on the YouTube channel. And if you are used to listening to this show live at work or something, like what I would say is that if we go live at night, that video file will be up the next morning. So by all means, throw it on at work. That's a great place to listen to this. I'm glad I can help you, some of you guys get through your days and so forth. So with all that being said, I am again had Tyler from Paper Waves in last night. We talked about our perfect Patriots mock drafts. We compared and contrasted those things. And so without further ado, what I'd like to do is play that video file. And Tyler, I believe, is in the comments, and I will be here as well as the show plays. So thank you, Mike. And hi, Lisa and Tyler. I see you, Tyler, there. So yeah, Tyler and I will both be in the comments, able to answer questions and kind of chat about our picks and our mock drafts and so forth as things go on. So thank you very much, Tyler. So yeah, enjoy the episode. I hope you all enjoy it. I'll pop on at the end. And oh, good. I'm glad it does, Mike. And look, again, even if we do a live one like the night before, that video file will be there the next morning. I'll probably post a link to it in the morning every morning. The following morning. And hey, sleeping babies are wonderful. That's a good time of life, my friend. The best thing you'll ever do in life is be a parent. I tell people that all the time. Stand by that 100%. It's one of my favorite things about life. So anyway, enjoy the video. Please get in the comments. Let us know how you think we did. Let us know which mock draft you prefer and kind of which philosophy that you would employ when you approach the mock draft, the draft class, and all of that. I'm definitely really interested to kind of see the comments and see who likes which mock draft more. So please let us know in the comments. Let us know where you think we went right, where you think we went wrong, and how we could do better on the next mock draft, or how the Patriots you think could do better in the actual draft. So without further ado, here is the video. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Snap Judgments. This is Randy, and I have Tyler from /Paperwaves. He is rejoining the podcast today, and together we're going to go through our perfect Patriots mock drafts. We're going to examine the differences, how we prioritize our kind of roster holes and deficiencies, and how we go about filling those roster holes. So Tyler, if you'd like to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me on, Randy. I'm Tyler. You can find me on X as Paperwaves DE. I run a blog called Patriots Draft Room. Recently, I dropped a blog on the options we have at pick 31. I'm currently in the process of working on day 3 guys. And the week of the draft, I'll be dropping something, basically a final mock of what I'm hearing, what I'm gathering, and just gonna lay it all out there why I think each player I'm picking for the mock makes sense for us, and the expectation that they could be there. So
can you give us a little sneak preview? Who's your favorite day 3 guy?
My favorite day 3 guy,
Yeah, we're
It
talking
really
ranked
depends.
outside the top 150, like
Outside
day
the top
day
150,
three guy.
mm, I'm really curious. It's actually going to be. I'm torn here because there is the guy that I picked last in our mock. I don't know if I should go ahead and spoil that now. I can, but there's another guy, Aiden Hubbard out of Northwestern. He's an edge, super underrated. I liked a lot of the flashes I saw from him, and learning about the person, I was like, dude, this guy has the energy, intensity, and super smart. And I feel like he's just a guy that if he got in the art type of system, like I don't know how much of an impact he would be, but I feel like the flashes I saw, there's something there to develop and grow off of. I guess I'll spoil it for the people that love the offensive side. My final pick in my mock is Chase. Goodness gracious, Chase. Goodness gracious. 1 second here. Sorry, guys. Getting all my names mixed up here. Chase Roberts out of BYU. Main reason I liked him a lot is you see a lot of flashes out of Alec Pierce on film for him, and he's not as fast. Alec Pierce had a 440, 44, 441, as Chase Roberts had a 464. So he's kind of like going to be on a little bit on the slower side.
Ooh,
I
yeah,
could see
little
him
slow.
being like a Mac. I could see him being like a Mac Hollins replacement, but he's got excellent ball tracking ability and separation that he can. You see a lot of his highlights. There's a lot of Alec Pierce to his game that he's able to separate enough to make a big play off of it. I think he's more football speed than track speed, so or straight line speed. But he's a guy to watch and hopefully check out if anybody's not seen him yet. Check out after this.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's tough to succeed at the wide receiver spot with that sort of speed. That's tough. Yeah. Well, hey, who knows? My favorite day three guy is Eric Gentry. That's the linebacker
Yeah.
out of USC.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of built like this guy right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
6'7", 220, like 36-inch arms or something friggin'
Yeah.
absurd like that. Just stretch Armstrong sort of numbers. It's
And
ridiculous.
and when he's in pass coverage, he's just doing a lot of this too. Like,
Yeah, no, I mean,
the flapping inflatable team arm guy.
yeah, listen, he sits
Yeah.
back in pass coverage in the zone, and like he literally looks like this guy and just covers the whole damn zone. I mean, he gets
Yeah.
fingertips on the ball, and like, listen,
Yeah.
you got to limit, you got to cover a lot of ground in the NFL, whether you do it with speed or you do it with those go gadget arms. I
Yeah.
mean, one way or another, it works.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, so let's dive into this. First of all, what kind of mindset did you go into with this? Because we're trying to build our ideal Patriots mock draft. This is how we would want this to fall, or how we would do it, whatever it is. But this is the ideal Patriots mock draft. So, how did you come at this? What sort of mindset did you come at this with?
The main mindset I had was the number one weakness I felt out of our team last year was pass rush. I believe we had, was it 35 sacks total? I think we were like ranked like 26 off the top of my head for total sack numbers. It may have even been lower than that. We were not the most efficient getting to the quarterback. So I went over, like, number one thing we got to take care of is pass rush. The overall idea I had was what cost us the Super Bowl was how good the coverage and blitz patterns were from Seattle. That if you can't beat them, join them and try to incorporate a little bit of that into your game as well. So there's the two guys that I took directly after. I went straight for the throat and grabbed guys I thought could handle that coverage, help eliminate a lot of the field, as well as having a really proficient pass rusher there. Then I finally just sprinkled in the offense. I just went for it. I felt everybody I took, the main things out of the weapons were size, catch radius, and then the best pass blocking guys I could find, as well as the weapon at running back. Um, I just wanted to sprinkle in as much of what I could that I felt fits the offense, doesn't take anybody out of their roles, but gives everybody a shot to start immediately, especially in the first three picks. And then everybody else can kind of be this borderline development or second string guy to kind of flow into a rotation.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And just I was checking the numbers. You're very, very close. 35 sacks. Only 6 teams in the NFL were worse last year.
Yeah,
So, that point is well made. Certainly, they need help getting pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. And yeah, so similar for me, like I wanted to make sure we got edge rush help in my mock, but I also was worried about how the draft class falls. And I wanted to do my best to marry BPA with a need, even if it's not filling the top need first and then the second need second and so forth. I wanted to go BPA that's closest to something we really need. And so that's how I kind of entered the draft. And that's what I sort of thought when I was building mine out. And I guess why don't we just pull mine up and we'll kind of go through the picks one by one and have you kind of break
yeah,
them down. And, I'll give you my thought process when I picked them. And then you kind of come back at me with, how you feel like they fit and how you feel like that works. And does that work for you?
yeah. It's cool with me, man.
All right. So as we can see, I did do one trade here. I didn't want to go wild with the trades. Mock draft simulators obviously let you go crazy if you want. You can build up an insane
Definitely.
amount of draft capital. I just wanted to make this as realistic as possible. Um, so I did target Max Ihenacor in the first round. Again, as we established on our last podcast, the general belief seems to be that he turned 22 in October.
Yeah,
If assuming that's the case, then awesome. I'm fired up about this guy. Developmental, like he doesn't need to start day one. I think and I think that's kind of the difference between him and like a Blake Miller, where I feel like Blake Miller would almost be like you want to start this guy day one.
right.
Max Ihenacor, you almost don't. You almost want to sit him and let him learn behind Moses and see how that goes and let him work his way in. And if Moses ends up needing days, so there'll be a lot of these for Ian Acor to work with that first team
Absolutely.
and get those reps in. So how do you feel like that's a reasonable, range to be targeting a backup right tackle?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just way about it because you're investing into the future, and draft is like contribute, right? But there is still an uncertainty to how long Moses can go. So you're kind of in this situation where, say, he does go down. Well, you have a guy that's ready to prove himself, and Moses is already on his last year of his deal anyway. You're kind of in a spot that it's like going even to what you said with Blake Miller. If you selected Blake Miller there, or if he was available, you're in an immediate competition thing where he's going to push Moses out the door and we cut him because he may want to actually play and not want to sit around and sit on the sidelines. Or you take Max here with the understanding that like he may succeed you at some point. You may get hurt and you may not get your job back, but at
Yeah.
least you at least will have this opportunity to still maintain your spot here with us. And then what happens afterwards, you understand the business is just business at the end of the day. And he's a professional, he would get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we were to go that direction, he's the guy I would prefer out of Miller or him. Miller, like I said, you're getting the starter. Ianniker, for the situation we're in, just makes more sense, and I think we can mold him to be what we want him to be.
Yeah. No, I agree with that too. The whole, kind of contrast with taking Blake Miller and the expectations that would kind of come along with that. So in the second round here, I wanted to trade up. I wanted to make sure because, like I said, I did want to target our needs here, and
Yeah,
I really felt like kind of what contributed to me taking a tackle in the first round is that Max Ihenacor is kind of the last of that first tier. And if you kind of group all those first round guys in, it's either Max Ihenacor or Blake Miller. that really rounds out the bottom of that tier. And after that, it really falls off a cliff. I mean, if I was going to draft one at 63, I would be reaching
Yeah.
and, waiting for one at 95. Well, like, what if those guys go? Then I'm reaching for a fourth or a fifth round guy. So I wanted to really make sure I got that locked down. This edge class is pretty deep, though. So I felt like I had the ammunition to get up a little bit higher than 63, which it turns out I could get up right up to 52. I made the trade with Houston. I gave them 63. I gave them our second, fourth round pick and our first sixth round pick. So 131 and 91. And I slid Kiss out of Illinois, who I
Yeah.
think is an ideal fit in this defense. I think he's
100%.
plays with violence. He's got the athleticism to back up the tape. And I mean, it's just the production. He checks all the boxes: the measurements, the production, the athleticism, the tape, everything. He's gets after the quarterback. He's reasonably stout in run defense also. So I just thought this 1-2 pick really worked out ideally for me here.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and I love Akis for us. I think he's his intangibles on top of everything you just mentioned is outstanding. Like, he's a film junkie, first guy in, last one out.
Yeah.
Wants to be the best he can possibly be at not just football. He was doing wrestling as well. Obviously, football is his calling. It's, there's more of a future in football than wrestling, unless he wants to go to WWE or something. But no, I think he's his heart and his mindset is all in the right place. It's, I want to be and doing everything I can for the team. Whatever makes me better, he's coachable. He's just all out Frable guy. And I think him with Landry, with Jones, all in this mix here, that builds a good rotation. You still have Ponder, you still have Swinson. We're still figuring out what's going on with Swinson, but like, there's options here for him. I've seen some people kick him back a little bit, saying like, I think he'd be better at DT. I don't personally see that. I think he's got enough juice to him, enough like power to him, that he fits a lot of what we're doing. It's just building more technique, showing him more of the way, and we have two vets to get him to that point. So I think he'd be a great fit for us no matter what.
Yeah, no, I would be really excited if the Patriots were able to get Gabe Akis in this range. And I think this is
Yeah.
the right range for him. There's a couple pass rushers that could go in this range, whether it be Akis, whether it be Derek Moore,
Mhm.
Cassius Howell, or Mason Thomas, depending on how far you think they fall due to measurables or testing or whatever it might be. Um, so there's a number of pass rushers that could go in this range. Akis just happens to be my favorite.
Yeah.
Um, so then in the third round, I just sat tight. Jacoby Lane at 95. To me, he is really an ideal, sacrificial X, if you will. He's a guy you do not have to target 10, 12 times a game to make an impact. I mean, you hit him for deep, impactful throws. He's a guy who caught, I think it was 12 touchdowns in his sophomore year, and like 7 of those were in the final 3 games. When he gets hot, he does damage, and he can go up and make those contested throws. He's got the body size at 6'4". He's got the wingspan, the hand size. Again, he's a guy, he checks all the boxes. He tested well at the combine, ran in the 4.4s, jumped high. He just checks all the boxes. He's got the production, the measurables, and the testing, the athleticism. How do you feel about him compared to the other receivers, kind of in that third round range? If it's Bryce Lance, Ted Hurst, whoever
Sure.
it might be.
Yeah, no, he's definitely up there for us. I like, really, my number one thing is I didn't want any receiver that is what we already have. I'm kind of over the 5'11", like barely grossing 6 foot range receiver. I think we just need versatility, and we're not going to have that for long with Matt Collins also on his final year of his deal. So my overall line of thinking, there's potential for him to be, that at least to McDaniel's offense, I could see him being like that borderline fringe or number one go-to guy, but also just more of a good big size dude that he's going to be able to spread the defense like like spread apart the offense more to basically have the defense have to draw a safety to him, have an extra guy on him because of his size. I loved what he did at the combine, where he was running the gauntlet. He was efficient, clean, had great movement, great hand-eye coordination with all that. So you definitely saw some like smoothness out of what he can do there. I think the main thing I saw a kickback on him was the route tree. There wasn't a lot shown there, but unfortunately, like with USC, when they have these big body guys, we saw it with Jerry Rice's son. It was like they kind of just pigeonholed you that like, hey, we want you to just do a comeback, a deep slant, straight deep shot, like
Yeah.
maybe a button hook or something. Just little things there, but they don't really. I feel like they cap you. They cut you at the knees before you can really show, hey, I can do some actually inside zone, inside crossers, some zigs. They don't really let the X's kind of do that. So it really became the Lemon show in that game. Like, hey, he's going to do all the crazy stuff. That's what we're going to design for him. Your big body, just do this. And that's how they kind of rolled with it for the last few years. So he's kind of a victim of that, but I'm really surprised he keeps falling. I felt like he was getting in that second or like early to mid second round, and it just feels like another situation similar to Elijah Surratt. Like for some reason, the draft just isn't, at least the draft hype isn't showing them the love that they kind of
Yeah.
deserve in that range. So, but no,
Well, I mean,
he would be a great option.
I think there's just a plethora of wide receivers available in this draft. And at some point
Right.
in time, like you only need so many and somebody's bound to fall. And I didn't keep track specifically, but I imagine guys like, Hurst and Lance and so forth went off the board in this mock before Lane did. I will say that with Lane, watching his tape throughout the season and watching him play the 2024 tape and the 2025 tape, like once Jaden Mayava got to USC, he really formed a connection with him. He started
Yeah.
making an instant impact and just catching touchdowns by the barrel full.
Yeah, he went off. Yeah, he was a great
Yeah,
weekend.
that those last few games of 2024 were really impressive. Put him on the map. 2025, his numbers did dip a little bit from 2024, but I thought there were times where I really thought he was the best receiver on his team on the field, and he plays with Mekhi Lemon, who's projected to go in the first half, or at least top 20 picks probably. I thought there was a little bit more shimmy and shake to him at times than you would think for a guy of his size. And I think that's like kind of a common way. Like anybody who hypes up a 6'4", 6'5" receiver often says that, but I really do think it was true. And I think what really highlighted for me was the Notre Dame game. Notre Dame with Leonard Moore playing cornerback, one of the top cornerback prospects in the nation. Christian Gray, who is a cornerback in this draft class, just kind of deep on day 3. But still, he's probably going to be an NFL player at some level. Leonard Moore is going to be an excellent NFL player. Leonard Moore pretty much locked down Mekhi Lemon during that game. It was like 5 or 6 catches for 70-something yards, which is, I mean, that's a solid game for a lot of people.
Yeah,
but for
100%.
Mekhi Lemon standards, that was not a great game. And it's not like Jacoby Lane had a crazy stat line in that game. But what I did notice is that every time they were switching on Jacoby. It was Jacoby Lane was picking up a lot of flags in that game. Not that. No, I'm sorry. He was drawing a lot of flags
Yeah.
in
No, I
that
got you.
game, not picking them up. It just seemed like when Leonard Moore would switch over onto Jacoby Lane, he struggled to cover his size, and he was really grabbing at him a lot and so forth. And I just think Jacoby Lane gives people problems when he has the ball in his hands and he's given those opportunities that you didn't see a lot of those opportunities, but when he does have them or when he's fighting on the boundary and so forth, cornerback can have a hard time with his size and with his ability to go up and get that ball. And sometimes they have to get physical with him in a way that you don't really have to with a guy that's, smaller in stature.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that last part up there, though. That was another thing thinking back. When he faced guys that were of like the 6'2", 6'3" stature at corner, that was kind of more where we saw struggle City because of his frame. He is thinner. So, it's one of those things that like he got thrown off of his route here and there, at least like, in a little bit of a discomfort zone. But he's at least when it comes to contested catching situations, he was pretty solid, especially along a lot of the comeback routes I saw him do. He's got some burst and juice to him that he can really pop something off with it. So
Yeah, and I mean when you've got him deep, 40 yards or whatever downfield, one on
mhm.
one with a quarterback, those 50-50 balls or 80-20 balls, okay,
Yeah,
because they're
exactly.
his. He's
Yeah,
gonna get them.
he's got crazy hops too. He's got a good jump for him. So
Yes, yes,
yeah,
he does. So yeah, I felt good about being able to get him at 95. And
yeah,
now in the fourth round, I only had the one pick because I traded 131. And so I went out and I got one of my favorite prospects, Ephesians Prysock, to come in, play the cornerback, play the, kind of third option cornerback behind Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. I've said it a few times on this show and in other places, but two of the three losses last year came when Gonzalez was sidelined. Carlton Davis had played one full season in his 8-year career, and it was last year. We can't count on that sort of luck with CD again. And Gonzalez, I mean, that's not the first time that Gonzalez has had injuries cause him to miss some time. So we need to have a better plan at cornerback 3 than we had last year. And I think Ephesians
right,
Prysock, he's a big 6'4", almost 220-ish, just kind of jacked diesel cornerback that's going to be able to get physical. I think he's a great prospect to learn behind a Carlton Davis, where he can learn that press man at the line, really kind of getting physical with with the opposite wide receiver. And I also think he's got the body type where you could experiment with some things in a almost Nick Emanwari type role, where covering in the slot or covering tight ends, being able to kind of make a defense be a little bit more multiple.
right. Yeah, no, I felt him and Takario Davis, like they both, it's a great 1-2 tandem that they had. I mean, we discussed them in the last show that we did.
Yeah.
I love like the man zone versatility that they both possessed. You got to cover more of Prysock than I did because I'm actually more of a Takario guy. I do like them both, but I'll say I was more of a Takario guy. Just seeing I wanted him out of the draft last year, so he was
Yeah.
on my radar for this year. It wasn't the year I expected him to. I was kind of hoping he'd have like a big like this is my last year, let's go all out kind of thing. I think Prysock just stepped up enough that like they both got the wealth of like targets going their way for them to be effective. I think if they just both came down with more, more interceptions and so forth, like obviously they're probably going to be a bigger stock for them. I can see Prysock, even though they kind of are listing him as like day 3. I can kind of see him being able to slip into day 2, that back half, because
Yeah.
people get kind of crazy in the draft, and he does fit a lot of teams that I could see. Like, let's get this guy now because we may not have a fourth pick or a fourth round pick, or let's get him while we can get him, kind of thing. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, he's a ball of clay that guys are going to want to try
mhm,
to mold, and
exactly.
I think hopefully we're lucky enough to get that.
Yeah.
So again, 131 I traded away, so that wasn't there. In the fifth round, I decided we need a tight end too, and I want a guy who can do a little bit of blocking and a little bit of receiving. I played a few plays from Borkshire here um, a couple days
Yeah.
ago on the show, and just showing people plays from him against Miami. And man, that guy
Hmm.
can block. There were a couple reps where he
Yes.
took on Ruben Bain one-on-one and stopped him. He really contributes in that game, but he can also make some catches. I mean, right at the end of that Miami game, he made a catch in traffic right with Keontae
Yeah.
Scott right on him. So I think he can really grow into being maybe not a superstar tight end or anything, but a very legitimate tight end too of the future. And maybe we target that star tight end later on.
Sure. I definitely was more. I kind of camped him more in the blocking type, like just kept him in that kind of bubble that he's definitely just stays more on the blocking side. Because we kind of, and it's not really fair to totally. Pardon me. It's not really fair to judge him for how an offense is ran, because he came off with 19 total catches, 198 yards, 3 touchdowns. So it's kind of like we discussed last time, was like the Oscar Delp situation where you're kind of banking more on the production side. Like there's upside in his blocking. Can we develop him to be the receiver we want? My only hesitation with going that direction is we signed Julian Hill as a blocker, primarily blocking tight end. And yes, you can go to try to develop him to receive. I just think we need a guy that right out the gate can be a productive receiver. So that's kind of like my main focus. Rather, if that is a
Mhm.
Sam Rapp or a Jolly or my guy Tanner Koziel, like anybody that can just like, hey, your goal right now is we want you to catch the football. We're going to work on the blocking, figure you out, get you stronger later on. Right now, we just need another body opposite Hunter Henry because something
Yeah.
happens to Hunter Henry, you're kind of cut at the legs with what you got going on with primarily just blocking tight ends. It can get the job done, but it's not going to be like what you've gotten out of Hunter and Hooper the last few seasons, where they're able to really cut up the middle of the field, haul in some consistent catches for them, and be playmakers. These guys in this blocking range, it's kind of hopeful. Cross your fingers, hope there's more to them there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me too. I mean, if Hunter Henry was to suffer an injury, and he's had also injury problems in the past, he's
Knock
also
on
been
wood,
lucky
not
in
since
the
he's
past.
been
So,
here, but
yeah, yeah, no, no,
yeah.
yeah, he's been lucky since he's been here, and maybe we've done a great job with the training staff. I imagine they deserve a significant amount of credit in that. But
Might just be
if there
California,
were,
49ers, the Chargers, all of them
you
back in the
know,
day. Like, yeah, they're all getting hurt now. But
but yeah, if there
anyways, you're
were
saying,
issues, then we'd be down a target, and Borkashire, it would be tough to push him into that role in a rookie season, even if he were to develop into a reasonable pass catcher at some point in time.
yeah.
Um, so next, a little preview of Tyler's draft. This is the only guy that we both drafted, Jeremiah Wright. Now Tyler drafted him in a slightly different position, but same guy. And I don't know if you have the same vision for him as I do. I don't
Hmm.
know if he could step in right away and start at right guard, but I think he would be ideal to sit behind Onwenu for a year, learn from Onwenu, and then expect to step in and start in 2027. That would be my vision for him, where we were able to let Onwenu walk at the end of the year, get that 20 million in cap room back, basically, and be able to spend that other places.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. I kind of view him as so Jared Wilson is our center. Let's just have Ben Brown primarily be the backup center. If we needed him to, we could pinch him in at guard if we have to. But I would view Jeremiah Wright exactly as you put it. I personally, I'd keep on Wenu on this roster no matter what, at least for the season. See where we're at come the end of it. Um, Pretty much I'd actually just have him kind of float, learn, make sure we're good at left and right, which I'm sure he would be. He's got the footwork, everything's all there. He's very put together and very smart kid that I can see him being, down to, hey, left guard, right guard, throw me whatever, I got you. I just want to block and hit somebody. So I think he would definitely be a good option for us to have the AVT insurance and then the understudy of Onwenu if we chose to go that direction. And realistically, too, say he doesn't end up being a starter for us, he's going to end up being a great backup for us for years and possibly be like that Ted Karras kind of guy where wherever we had to throw him, if we have, he's got good enough size that I'm like, what's his height again? Is he at six?
He's like 6'4", 330,
Yes,
roughly.
I mean,
I
I don't
mean,
know. On
he compares roughly to Onwenu well.
Yeah, I wonder if like similar to on Wenu, if we absolutely had to throw him at tackle. I thought he had good arm length. Um, I'm just going off of memory here, but thought he had good enough arm length that maybe there's something there to him that he could even throw in at tackle if he needs to. But he's just no matter what, he's a guy you throw him in wherever, he's going to make the play for you. He'll be down to learn and figure it out.
Yeah, his arm length 33 and an eighth. So,
Okay.
over the bare
Huh.
minimum of what you would look for in
Yeah.
a tackle. Um, I to me, he's a right side player. He started
Hmm.
all 12 games the last 2 years at Auburn at right guard. And I just tend to put kind of the bigger run blocking type guys on the right side. which
I
is,
agree.
kind of an old school way to do it. But I do think that there is the point that AVT carries significant injury risk, and you want to make sure he's well backed up. Um, so, if Wright does kind of feel like he's a right side guy, right on the right,
Yeah.
then maybe you go with somebody that you feel like has a little bit more positional versatility at that spot. But I really did feel good about Wright, and I think I honestly think that there's a chance that you come into training camp and you find out Jeremiah Wright's just an ass kicker at right guard, and you're like, listen, I got to start this kid, and then somebody goes down somewhere, retires early, whatever it might be, and you're able to get a little draft capital in 27 out of Onwenu. I
Right.
think there's a chance. I'm not saying it could happen. I just think there's a chance with that. I think Wright's got the tools and got the stuff. Um, at 202, a couple picks later, I flipped around to the defensive side of the ball, and I went with Jacoby Thomas, who's an intimidating, hard-hitting safety out of Miami. I've heard Alex Barth talk significantly about him, and I've seen a bit of him. He's a guy that guys Alex Barth keeps saying that receivers essentially run away from, like they don't want any part of this
Right.
dude. He's just going to take you down. Um, so I feel like he's a good guy to potentially develop. Whether or not he develops into the eventual starter, I don't know, but maybe he's just a solid backup for a long time, a depth rotational piece. At this point in the 6th round, if you get anybody who contributes or makes the roster, you're doing pretty well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of, I feel like I'd have him as like a mid to end of fourth, early fifth round kind of pick. I kind of think he just has shown enough, especially throughout the playoffs, how Miami was able to just this like just stay in those games. All these games that Miami was pretty much like pinned that they're going to lose, they ended up like staying in it because of how well their defense played. And he was one of the contributors to that, as well as their pass rush. I think he's definitely a body that you could look to mold. You definitely can't go, like you said, you can't go wrong with anybody where you get him, especially that late. And we just definitely need the safety depth regardless. But he's very intense. I'm trying to go off of memory of him, but he was very intense. He had good like play recognition. He was able to like have some disruptive passes throughout his way. Um, but all in all, man, I just think from what I saw of him, I liked of him. I think he's going to get a bit of a higher push come draft time.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely could be. And, being on that big stage in the championship game helps all those players, honestly. Um, at the next spot, my last pick of the 6th round, I went with Bryce
Mm,
Botcher,
yeah.
linebacker out of Oregon, former center fielder. And you see those instincts in his game. He's able to track the ball very well, cover a lot of ground in coverage. I think he kind of maybe plays in that sort of Marte Mapu type of role, where it's almost like a hybrid type of linebacker safety in coverage situations. I think he could potentially make the roster, special teams contributor,
Mm.
again, kind of step into that sort of role that they were trying to play Marte Mapu in last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And a versatile player, and he's an absolute Frable guy. Frable personality, gym rat, world class athlete. He was also supposed to be a baseball player. He's stuck with football. This is what he wants to do. So I think all in all, he's the guy that in my mock I was just about to take him. I'm staring at him, and he didn't go to me at I think 118 was where I was going to take him. I think he's in that third round range, third to fourth round range, just off of how he did at the Senior Bowl, how impressive he was on all of his Oregon tape. He's just a great athlete that you can look to mold. A lot to go off of, especially in his coverage, his physicality against run. He's awesome. He's a really good guy too for us. So, person locker room fit and on the field.
Yeah, and I mean, in baseball, he was a Golden Glove center fielder.
Yeah.
And, so he's got the hands to get some ball production, in pass coverage situations. I really like him as an option late. And now the last guy I grabbed, and I did 10 picks in this.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, 9 picks in this. because I
Hmm.
traded three,
Yep.
um, 3 for 1. So the last guy I grabbed in this was Cole Wisniewski. Now
Hmm.
he's a safety out of Texas Tech, and he's another guy, rangy player,
Yep.
good timing, good hand-eye coordination, a high-level football intelligence, and he's a decent tackler, a sound physical
Yeah.
tackler. I think both these guys are kind of guys that aren't going to wow you with their athleticism, but they're just
Exactly.
good, solid football players that'll build up good, solid depth on this team.
Yeah, and he's another guy that I don't think gets credit enough for uh, the success of Texas Tech's defense last year. Like they just he was one of those guys that was the rah rah like lock like smart leader, pretty much helped coach up a lot of guys throughout, keep them straight. He definitely doesn't get a lot of the praise for it, but I remember when they lost to, I believe it was Oregon, was their last game in the playoffs. But I just like how I feel like he was somebody that was so loyal and dedicated to Texas Tech that like he was one of the last guys leaving the tunnel, and it was just like sad to see him like I'm finally done with this. He loved it so much, and I think he'd apply the same love, energy, and heart to like our team as well. So really, this safety class, this linebacker class, and this edge class that I'm gonna, well, let me just start with let's just say safety and linebackers. You really can't go wrong with who you take. Edge, there's a couple that I'm kind of, I wouldn't want to bank on. That's gonna be my primary pass rusher, but at least safety and linebacker with the position of where we're at. Any of the linebackers I think in this class can probably contribute. I mean, we got Elam Zor, you got Keyshawn Elliott, even the guy from well, obviously there's my guy Kyle Lewis. There's one more
Mm.
guy. I literally just had his name.
I
There's
like Landon
Jeremiah.
Barton.
Yeah, Lander Barton. Like literally, there's
Deontay
just
Lawson's another good one.
Lawson. Yeah, there's a lot of options for us wherever you go
Torian
throughout.
York.
Yeah, there's throughout this entire draft,
Yeah.
and like there's one guy, I'm literally blanking on his freaking name, but
Well,
there's one
and
more guy I wanted to bring up, but anywho.
the thing I like about Wisniewski, is right around the Shrine Bowl, he was getting a little bit of hype. And, that's the last time you saw this guy on a football field doing football things. And to me, it's like guys that are getting hype while they're on the field, those are the
Hmm.
football players. The
Yeah,
dudes who got hype over the last 2 months are the athletes. They're the gym rats. They're, the workout warriors. And that doesn't always translate on a football field. You need a solid baseline of
right.
athleticism for sure. And does elite athleticism help? Sure, it can. But these guys that were getting hyped the last time they were on a football field doing football things, those are the guys I'm excited about, not necessarily the guys that are going to go jump out of the gym or run really fast in their shorts. Um,
Yeah, and
so
and
it's
I've said, oh,
I
I
was
was
just
gonna
gonna
say,
say I think he's a real solid quality late day 3 pick.
definitely. I was gonna say like this whole class is a lot of guys that this is like grab your hard hat, lunch pail. These guys are ready to
Mm,
work. There's not a lot of BS to this class. There's
right.
really, even going through Dan Brugler's the Beast I went through. There's really not a ton of car or a ton of character issues. But I mean, there's like literally the smallest stuff even got put in for character issues. Is like a guy driving with a suspended license going 60 and
Yeah,
a 35 for
right.
his ticket. I'm like, this is in the beast because there's not that much to go off of. The guy, there's two that I was trying to draw up. It was Red Murdoch and Kendall Daniels were the two guys that I was.
Oh, okay.
Red Murdoch is out of Buffalo. Kendall, he's out of Oklahoma. So both are really
Gotcha.
solid guys as well that kind of fit our mold too.
And hey,
So,
as good as the Beast is, wait until Bob McGinn comes out for the character
mm,
stuff, okay? Because that's the dude that always gets the
yeah,
dirt, okay?
I'm
I
excited for
again,
that.
another old school guy, but I love it. And every year I want to see the Bob McGinn report and see, like, I want to get the dirt on who these kids really are
Right,
because
I'm with you.
that's what you need to know. You can see how they can perform sometimes, but sometimes, like, how you act with money, how you act around people. And like one
Hmm.
of the first things that Mike Vrabel talked about when he took over this team was treat everybody in this building with respect, not
Yep.
just your teammates, not just your coaches, but like, the people, the staff members and stuff. And there was talk about disciplinary action because of people that were just like throwing their towels on the ground expecting other people to clean up their shit and stuff like that, where it's like, dude, no, treat everybody with respect.
Right.
And so I think that's very important.
Yeah,
um
definitely.
all right, let's hop right on into your draft now.
Yeah, definitely, man.
um Now you attack this in a different way, so why don't you lay out your draft, pick by pick, and I'll come back at you and tell you, why I agree or disagree with that particular pick.
Absolutely. So I started my mock with the ideal intention. Uh, I started with TJ Parker was my first selection. I was intending to trade up for him. And I was staring at a situation where Denzel Boston, TJ Parker, and a couple of the other edges that are sitting there were my decision. I keep feeling that even regardless of this situation with Frabo right now, I do think we're still gonna be in that bubble for AJ Brown. So if there is a deal in place and everything's still gonna be intact with that, I just went ahead and went along with that mindset.
Okay.
Um, TJ Parker, absolutely love him. Athletic freak, great size. His 24 tape is absolutely outstanding. The kid can freaking play. I think the main thing of why he dropped this kid was going to be a top 10 pick pre-draft, pre like college season that went
Yeah.
through. He flat out just didn't have the best year, and that goes to be the same thing for Peter Woods, goes to be the same thing for pretty much everybody on Clemson, because the whole
Yeah.
team just did not perform to anybody's expectation, and it just felt like nobody was playing with heart. TJ
Yeah, I mean, the
Parker
poster
did.
boy for that being the quarterback, Klubnik fell
Yeah,
farther and
yeah.
harder than anybody else on that team.
It definitely was very disappointing, but I think TJ Parker presents a lot of the speed to power stuff that Elliot Wolf talked about. I'm aware that we have met with him numerous times. TJ Parker had said at one of his Senior Bowl interviews talking about the Patriots that like they came for a Clemson visit or two, and it was just cool to like meet more people out of the Patriots group. I feel like I've got a good standing with them, and it seems like there's some interest that's like proficiently there, but realistically, that's probably the same said for numerous teams that probably feel like they could take advantage of Clemson's players falling. So it's not a guarantee we would get him. It's not a guarantee TJ Parker would even be here. As I mentioned, I was trying to trade up to get TJ Parker. Thankfully, he just happened to fell for me here. So he would ended up being my pick and wanted to be just the guy we're basing our pass rush around for in the future. And he's going to be a great rotation with Jones as well as Landry and be effective in helping us get to the quarterback more.
Okay. And now, do you have any concerns about like his love of the game, his dedication? I know there's some talk in some, draft Nick
Sure.
circles, if you will, that there's concern that, maybe he kind of like goes through the motions a little bit and he doesn't really love the game like you want, your first round pick too.
Sure. And I think like my only thing with that aspect of it is like, are people basing that off of how like throughout the years he's expressed that, or is that because really Clemson had an awful year, and are they going off of just how he was interacting throughout interviews, throughout numerous things, like just in general, that they're getting this information that he doesn't love the game? Because I felt like when I watched a lot of him communicating with reporters at the Senior Bowl, small and big, he seemed like he was passionate, happy to be there, happy
Okay.
to compete with the guys. So I felt like he kind of nipped that idea of or persona of him like away.
Mm.
Obviously, at the same time, though, too, it is a big job interview at those things. You want to kind of put on the best persona you possibly can. But all in all, I mean, I think he just, if there is that possibility, we would be a great system to make sure he does love the game. With the
Yeah,
coaching
no,
we have
that's
here, with
yeah.
that's just my idea of like where it's at. If there is any hesitation, we're going to be at least the best environment he can possibly be in to fall in love with the game again.
I mean, certainly he's going to be surrounded by a bunch of guys who are not going to let him
Yeah,
just relax and
you're
take it
not sitting
easy.
on your
So
hands
I
here. Yeah, yeah.
agree with you. So I went offensive tackle in the first round. You went with the defensive end, the edge player. And obviously different philosophies in attacking, holes on this team. Back in the second round, you decided, you know what? I don't want any part of this second round. I'm going to trade on back and head to
Hmm.
the third round where you pounced on Kyle Lewis. I know he's one of your favorite players in the draft.
Yes,
Real good coverage linebacker. We talked about Bryce Botcher. Bryce Botcher is like the light version of Kyle Lewis. Okay. Kyle Lewis we saw him at the
yes.
Senior Bowl, and really that highlighted his skill set, being able to jump out on those screen passes and make plays on the ball. How do you see him fitting into this defense, rather?
I see him as one of the guys that's potentially going to end up being the locker room leader or heart of this team once Spillane is gone. I think he has all the capabilities to be a true force for us. Wherever you need this guy, he's going to make an impact. You need him to stay at linebacker. You needed him to drop into coverage, play safety for us, go to corner real quick, play nickel, even throw him in at edge just to get that pass rush. Those like he will go out there, put his hard hat on, even if like whatever you need him to freaking do, he is going to go out there and do it and succeed at it. He just plays with nonstop heart, great effort, great motor, great intelligence all across the board. So how I see him fitting is we really struggled a lot with like a lot of the tight end coverages as well as like receiving running backs. We did struggle with that. I think he's the type of guy that he's going to track your running back, tight end, your slot corner, wherever you need him to cover. He's going to be able to follow through with him just like a normal cornerback would and knock him out of the play. Um, but on top of that, I just think all the intangibles are there. The play style just fits a need of ours because we definitely need as much coverage help as we can get. Um, and obviously, now that we're so thin at linebacker, he's kind of my version of where we would be at with losing Marte Mapu, but just in a smaller frame.
Yeah, now I'm definitely a smaller frame. That was actually going to be my question. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
that he can put on some weight and play linebacker full time, or do you think that he can make this impact well in the 220s and playing kind of a hybrid role where he's not going to be effective? Like his drawback is run defense, and we already had
Right.
issues with run defense. We
Mm-hmm.
obviously he wouldn't be on the field in running situations,
Sure.
especially if he stayed at like 225 or whatever it is he's at.
Yeah.
Do you think that he could end up as a full time linebacker? Or do you think he's best served as a defensive weapon in the passing game?
I view him as like a Fred Warner light. I think he is that kind of rangy guy that that's my bit. Like I hate comparing players personally; it's just not really my thing. But when I think of a guy that has a size limitation to him, that has versatility, he does strike check a lot of those boxes that Fred Warner also does. Um, you could keep him at that weight. It definitely doesn't hurt for him to bulk up and get a little bit more strength to work with his speed as well. Um, so could he stay at linebacker at that? Yeah, I mean, I think it could definitely work. But there's also the idea, and it kind of negates my upcoming pick here with safety. But there is the possibility of us like looking to him to be a safety as well in the future. But in this situation here, if this was the mock that we were to go with, Kyle Lewis would remain a linebacker, rather that's going to just be packing on a few pounds, or
Yeah.
we're just going to keep you at your weight because we liked what we saw in film out of you and your versatility, and you're going to be able to help us cover some guys.
Yeah, and I mean, you really leaned into the versatile defensive chess piece here, going Jalen Kilgore in the
Mm-hmm.
next round, which it looks like. Pardon me, did you? I'm trying to figure out the
Oh yes,
trades
yes.
and so forth. Oh
So
wait, sorry, I have
no, no,
them.
you're
Wait,
good. You're good. You're
we've
good.
got
I
pictures.
can
I'm
I can go
horrible
off
on
the
this.
top of my head here. So yes, so
Okay,
I traded up here with
traded
Pittsburgh. So
back
the pick
60.
that
Gotcha. Here we go.
the additional pick that I got from the Saints for trading back, I guess, what was it, 10 spots or whatever. I then did the same thing here basically, and I just moved back 10 spots again. I wanted to go ahead and do typical Elliott Wolf stuff, get a future pick for next year, as well as just go ahead and do some pick swap stuff here. So doing so helped me move up because, and the reason I went this direction was I just watched Bud Clark and I just watched Zakee Wheatley go. And if
Mm,
there's a high end safety that they would want to take, this is the last option we've got here. And there is a lot to Kilgore that I like as well. And he is kind of similar in this Kyle Lewis role, but I don't know if I would keep him at a linebacker situation. I would keep Kyle Lewis at linebacker because he's obviously shown he can stay at linebacker and he was successful with it at Pitt. Kilgore, if you asked him to do that consistently, I don't know if he could. So I would keep him kind of this versatile corner safety. And my whole idea, going back to what I said at the beginning of the show, Seattle beat us with 3 safety sets. This is an idea that you can use Byard, you can use Kilgore, and you can use Craig Woodson, all to be variety that can help you really dissect some offenses while we also have a guy covering the middle of the field in Kyle Lewis, while we also have a great defensive front and a new addition in TJ Parker. That's my whole idea is let's make this thing the best strength it can possibly be. And if we're going to struggle, if we're not going to have the season we had last year, we're going to at least just make sure it's not going to be any easier for any of these teams to get past us this year because we're facing tougher competition. So let's build this
yeah.
defense up and go from there. So that was
Yeah. I
my
mean,
whole line of thinking here.
you're really building up the back seven and giving some versatility to the defense and kind of leaning into the theme of what I had been talking about earlier this
Right.
week, where, puzzle pieces. We're finding the specific things we need and filling in specific. I mean, we're working with the scalpel here. Okay. We're not taking a chainsaw out of this roster anymore. That's what they did last year. This year, we're working with a scalpel and we're filling in very specific needs and things, holes in this roster that shone through last year in negative ways too often.
Right.
The next spot here is where you turn around and you go on the offensive line and you grab
Yep.
big old Travis Burke, big old
Mm-hmm.
6'9", giant mammoth of a man out of Memphis.
Yes.
I assume that you project him to be the right tackle of the future.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
he would be my successor of Moses. He for a guy as big as he is, he shows kind of like Ianniker, where he shows a lot of skill to his game more than I expected. For a guy that I honestly didn't hear about until like 2 months ago. So for where he's at, I was very impressed for like what I saw on film of him. I think had he faced tougher competition and Memphis being a better, if they were a better program or a more proficient high end kind of program where they would be facing tougher competition on a more frequent basis, it'd be nice to see that out of how he handles that with Burke. But all in all, man, he's intense. He's got great hand placement for where he's at. I think his footwork, he's a big guy. Footwork is going to be kind of hard to be perfect with where he's at. But all in all, I think if he gets into a system with us, man, he's going to learn a lot from Moses and be ready to be our guy for the future there. So I think a lot of people that probably are doing a lot of mocks are going to say you're reaching here. Like I see him at the 212 or wherever the heck, he's on different boards wherever.
Yeah.
This is the type of thing you got to get your upside guys. And that's what I did here for pretty much these next 2 picks is I went ahead and just got the guys that I don't think are going to be there. The board's going to start flying. I've already addressed my other primary needs. So let me get the guys that I think are going to help us right now, right here.
Yeah, yeah, and it takes a while for some of these mock draft boards sometimes to catch up with reality. The reality is position scarcity is going to push these offensive tackles with traits off the board quickly. And Travis Burke, great foundation for an NFL career. This is a guy who was coached by David Deal, former 2-time Super Bowl champion, former
Yep.
second team All-Pro, former Pro Bowl offensive tackle of the New York Giants. We try not to hold that against him. Um, those two Super Bowls won over us, sadly. But listen, that's quality coaching to get in college. David Deal is the assistant offensive line coach there at Memphis, so
Yep.
it's a real good base. Now, when I went Nate Borkisher, you said I see Nate Borkisher, and I raised you Tanner Koziel,
Mhm.
who you believe is the answer to the pass catching woes of the Patriots offense, particularly in the red zone, I imagine. Yes.
Yeah, a red zone, middle of the field. I think he would be a more more effective and athletic version of Austin Hooper for where Hooper has been the last 2 3 years. Hooper's
Okay.
definitely not the athlete he was when he came in, so I think he's going to definitely be that direct replacement. He's got good size to him, 6'6", 6'7", as the cool kids say, or whatever. He's in that borderline fringe range of his size, depending who you ask or who's doing the measurements at the combine. But his production does not get talked about enough, and we covered it on the last time we spoke. But it was what 74 catches this year, 94 catches last year, and that's in two different offenses. This year with Houston, and then last year with Ball State. The kid's production and consistency over the years is outstanding. He's got good intangibles to him. The main knock on him is his blocking. He's not the freaky athletic speed guy, but for a guy as big as he is, I think he just fits what we're doing. And it's not like we're gonna get a world like how realistic is it for a 6'7" guy to be running a 4.4 4.5, but also have a good enough build to him. I've jokingly said he's anorexic Gronk. He's at the 250 range currently, so he's a guy that I just think McDaniels has already worked with a player similar size. Let's just go ahead and use it. Like, go ahead and take that. Get a guy that's going to help you in the red zone, help us middle of the field, and we can develop blocking later. But right now, we need a guy to replace Hooper, and that would be
Yeah,
Tanner
and I mean
Koziel.
this is a guy with good hands, and
Mm-hmm.
measured nearly an 84-inch wingspan, just a massive catch radius, good hands, a great target for Drake May down in the red zone and in the center of the field, as you pointed out.
Yeah,
Now, we talked about Jeremiah Wright during my
yeah,
mock. The same guy for you, same thought process for you
yeah.
here. It's
We don't
really
need to
kind of
cover
the
him, but
same
yeah,
range.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So we're going to skip right on down to Devin Marshall. He's a guy who I know
Mm-hmm.
the Patriots have shown pre-draft interest in, a cornerback out of NC State. Why don't you tell us what you like about him?
Um, I also found out Devin Marshall's from the New England area, so that's also
Yes.
kind of cool.
Yeah, he was at the local
So
pro day. Yeah.
yes, I was like, how is he at the pro? I was like, is the college like none of this is making sense? And it turns
Yes.
out
Yeah.
he's from the area, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, now that makes a ton of sense. So one, he's a Mass area kid. He I I kind of teeter back and forth. I think he could be a lot higher than this. I think he could be kind of right at the fringe of back half day two into day three. So I'm just going to comfortably say he's day three here. He has good lockdown ability, kind of similar to who he's at 5'10". I'm trying to think of a good comp for him that at least Patriot World is kind of associated with. Um, mm, I even hate to say it, but maybe like a Jack Jones, but without the interception rate, where Jack Jones was pretty solid with who he stayed on. I can kind of see him in that kind of mold of where we play him, but he's definitely going to be a good successor type to Carlton Davis. And honestly, we just lost Alex Austin as well too. So no matter what, he's solid corner depth. And I think the kid plays really smart, has a lot of special team ability too. Wherever you need him, whatever you want to do with him, he's said in a recent interview, hit like I'll mop the floors for whatever you want me to do on this defense. I'm going to do it for you, and he just wants to play and get out there. So I like him a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, despite the lack of interceptions, which he had two last year, he really does get his hands on the ball a lot. He had 16 passes deflected last year. And I mean, that's some really good production for a
Yeah.
cornerback. Um, Now, Adam Randall, this is another guy I know that the Patriots have shown pre-draft interest
Mm-hmm.
in. Little bit running back. third down option and maybe some kick return value, you think? Or
Hmm.
what do you, is that the role you would project him in, kind of
That
stepping right into Antonio Gibson's shoes?
that's where I would lean with him too. And he is a taller running back too. Believe he's at 6'2", 6'3".
Mm,
Pardon me. He's at 6'2", 6'3". And so I initially thought watching him on tape, I thought he was going to be at like 6 feet even, but there is some size to him. So I mean, I think with what he showed in the kick return game, I love the speed. The size is interesting, but what's ultimately kind of setting him back from being more involved, I guess, or viewed as a higher prospect with these traits. Regardless, if he were to fall in this range, I think he'd be an absolute steal of a contributor to our team. I don't see him taking over Stevenson's role necessarily, but more maybe as a red zone guy to, we're right at the goal line. Hey, whatever, if it's not working for Stevenson, throw him in the mix. And I think he might be able to do some jitterbug stuff and just be able to get in the end zone with him. So,
yeah, that makes sense. That's the role that they really need to fill here. So that makes a lot of sense and a good range to do it in too. Now, Jack Kelly, this is a guy from the linebacker position, a little bit bigger, a little bit
mhm.
of pass rush threat, right? 10
Yeah,
sacks this year, I believe, and 15
yeah,
in the last two. And highly productive. I mean, a lot of tackles, a
yeah.
lot of work out there. So, talk to me about where you think that he would fit in this defense.
So I went ahead and doubled up on the linebacker front for this. So we got our coverage linebacker, and we got kind of this like hybrid esque, like I can utilize him primarily in the pass rush and be like the typical style linebacker. That was the approach I wanted to go with. It was initially I could get two good receiving options with Kyle Lewis and Bocher and go that direction was what I was thinking. But I was like, no, let's kind of keep it like fundamental rounded. He lose Gibbons, so I
Mm,
can see him being like the size wise Gibbons replacement. Kyle Lewis can kind of, I mean, like I said, it's just positional versatility. But Kelly, I can
yeah.
kind of view him as the Gibbons replacement, like be able to be physical. I think his tackling, he was successful at a lot of his tackles. I wonder how he's going to handle a lot more on the tight end front. So, I mean, he definitely was more consistent with tackling running backs than he was with tight ends. So that is just something to be a little mindful of. But I think he and the Pop Tart Bowl stood out to me. I always watch the Pop Tart Bowl every single year, but he had a couple plays that he made out there, and I don't know. He's somebody to definitely watch out for us. So.
Okay. All right. Now, the next guy that you picked with your last pick in the sixth round is Bryson Eason. And I know a little
Mhm.
bit about Bryson Eason. I know he came into Tennessee, 25 years ago, roughly. No, he was a sixth year senior.
Yeah.
He came into Tennessee as a linebacker. So probably literally like 150 pounds ago. And over the 6 years he's been at Tennessee, he has done some eating and he is
Hmm.
now a defensive lineman.
Yep.
Um, so tell me why you think he's the right guy here. I know those Tennessee defensive linemen can be a little tough sometimes to project to the NFL just because of
Right.
the depth of that rotation. They operate like a hockey team down there. Um,
Exactly. I when I watched him, I was kind of in a rock and a hard place for who I was initially trying to get here. I'm trying to remember who it was that went off the board, but it was Nick Barrett was one guy I was looking at. He had gone just a few picks prior, and I think he'd honestly go even sooner than that in real life. So kind of respecting the board where it was at, I just felt like Eason would be just somebody that like he showed a lot, especially in his 2024 tape, that like there's something to this guy's game, and honestly kind of reminded me a lot of Milton Williams. Off
okay.
of the 2024, there was not a lot I saw in 2025. As you mentioned, the rotation is definitely heavier. And the other highlight package I had to end up watching of him um, was uh, more so the same stuff I saw in 2024. So it's kind of sprinkled them both in. So it's like, this is not what I was hoping it would be. So out of what I saw of him, I think he'd be a good investment, another body, and they keep talking about us looking for DT for some reason. So I was like, okay, this is where I would be comfortable getting a DT or nose tackle would be right here with Eason here. So
Okay, yeah. I mean, again, it's tough with him because there's just he just doesn't have that production at the college level. And again, that's really a product of that frustrating Tennessee system on both
right,
sides of the ball. I mean, they give us wide receivers and quarterbacks that we can't properly evaluate because of the offensive system. They give us defensive linemen every year that are incredibly frustrating to evaluate because of that hockey like, full change in, change out, and so forth. It can be just frustrating.
definitely.
So I think that, so I see here in the seventh round, you turned around and you tapped back into the BYU pipeline,
Yeah.
and went with Chase Roberts.
Yes.
Um, so interestingly, I think that's the only school you doubled up on here. Nope, Clemson. So we've got two Clemson guys
Yes,
and now
that's right.
two
Yep.
BYU guys.
Yeah.
What do you like about Chase Roberts? I know he's a bigger wide receiver. I know I did a little bit of tracking on him in summer scouting, but kind of honestly fell off a little bit myself throughout the season on
Sure.
him.
Going back to what I just mentioned with the Pop Tart Bowl, he was a standout in that game. He definitely made a lot of big plays. So he was somebody I just wanted to monitor and see how he turned out throughout this whole draft process. And I feel like every mock simulator I see him on, he's for some reason in the seventh round. So I don't know if there's something that's going on a little further that I'm not aware of. But what I saw on film, there's a lot of Alec Pierce to his game that we were just looking for an Alec Pierce. He just doesn't match the same speed levels, but I view him personally as like the Mac Hollins replacement. He's going to be able to make those catches and up the middle. If you want to throw him out deep, he's going to be able to make some plays there. I just think all in all, like, again, going back to my original idea, we're going to try to hypothetically in this mock, would we be going for AJ Brown?
Right.
I view him as this is our another good size catch radius guy for Drake May that give him some time. He can be another reliable target for us. I
Yeah.
think everything I've watched of Drake May is he just feels a lot more comfortable with these guys that have shown reliable wherever you can throw it. I'm going to come down with it type radiuses. And I think he just him and Mac Hollins. It was just so like when he threw to him, it felt the cleanest when he was throwing to him. Not saying Mac Hollins should be our number one, but I just felt like on a consistent guy I'm going to every single time basis, Mac Hollins
Yeah.
it just felt the most natural to where Drake's targets were. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I would hope for him would be
Well,
that replacement.
and I mean, I remember, a lot of Mac Hollins too, I felt was like a lot of kind of intangibles, leadership, just character,
Hmm.
just like a dude saying no, like this, like the Super Bowl. I remember those two catches he made in the Super Bowl when
Hmm.
he made that long one and then he made the touchdown. And it was like, I came on the next and I just said, look, Mac Collins just said, no, fuck that. We're not getting shut out. All
Right,
right. Like
exactly.
I'm gonna score a touchdown here. I don't care. But and if he could be like that every time he was out there,
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. But at the end of the day, it was just him coming through as a teammate and as a leader and saying,
yeah,
no, screw that. We're not gonna get pounded like this. I'm gonna do something about this. And putting up what he could. I think realistically, though, if you got AJ Brown coming in, Chase Roberts probably competing for a practice squad spot. So
sure.
we'll see. Like
Yeah,
there's only
like
so many wide receivers you can keep.
and for me, I didn't intend to have it. I believe I ended up finishing with 11 picks anyway. I was trying to shed some picks off to move up, and it
Right.
just ended up like, all right, shoot, I ended up getting the same amount. So just shuffled the board around a bit. So the seventh round pick, guys, like we're he's damn near Mr. Irrelevant here.
Right.
So it's kind of like
Well, and I think
whatever,
what's
Kobe mine.
important is what you talked about is kind of having that body type. Because when we found out when Matt Collins went down last year, we really don't have that big 6'3",
Correct.
6'4" body type guy that we can even just put out there in some situations and see what happens. Um, there are just situations where you want the Matt Collins and the Chase Roberts of the world instead of the Demario Douglases of the world. And it's not to talk down on the smaller guys. It just is what it is.
Right.
Um, So, look, I think comparing and contrasting these two drafts, again, we attacked the same weaknesses just in different ways, essentially. You built out that defense. That was clearly a priority for you. Your first three picks, the pass rusher, and then two guys in the back seven to answer the tight end coverage and kind of the big slot coverage issues that we had last year.
Right.
Um, and then you decided, all right, offensive tackle of the future. And I kind of went the opposite way, where I said, look, I'm going to nail down that offensive tackle spot,
Hmm.
and then we'll figure out defensive spots along the way here. Um,
Yeah.
I certainly had a lot less defensive picks too. I think,
Hmm.
I had five, and including my three last ones, where you had of your 11 picks, one, two,
Was it
three,
one, two,
four,
four, five?
five, six out of 11 picks on
Yeah.
defense, including your first three. So
Yeah.
completely opposing philosophies on building these draft classes in our minds, essentially. My last three were defense. Your first three were defense. You
Yeah.
attack the edge first. I attack the tackle first. But I think that the overall point becomes both of these were perfectly good ways to attack these weaknesses on the team and provide players that can develop into long-term starters and contributors on this roster.
Yeah. Definitely, man. I think, and really, it kind of just goes to show you that, like, everybody's going to have a different philosophy, a different idea, a different approach, and everybody's going to view our needs differently. Because especially if you go on Patriots Twitter, it's all like we need receivers, we need a tackle, we need to worry about this, we need to worry about that, and I just go off of just what did we struggle in last year? Did we address our issues in free agency? What all did we cover in free agency that we can kind of pump the brakes on
Yeah.
and focus on what else do we need here and what make will make us better. And so that's just why I just, hey, we if we're going to be facing tougher competition this year, if that's going to be such a concern, like, you can go ahead and address the offense. Well, we already kind of did that primarily in free agency. Let's go ahead and do our defense here, strengthen this up, get some young guys to especially work the middle of the field, maybe introduce this idea of these three safety sets that's going to end up becoming the new norm, and
Right.
just operate this way. Everybody's going to have a different philosophy. This is just maybe an idea or an approach that they could consider doing. Um,
Well,
but
the other thing that kind of worked itself out generically, and I promise you, we didn't plan this at all. We did see each other's drafts prior to the show, but we did not see each other's drafts prior to drafting. So like I didn't do mine and then he did his. So we had different players and different philosophies. We just worked it out like this on accident. But I think another important distinction between the two is the talk of the AJ Brown trade, where I was operating with blinders on just with the roster we have right now. And you were operating with the thought process of I've got AJ Brown in my back pocket in the bank. And so and so it shows the differing kind of priorities that you might go at this draft with, and kind of the opportunity cost of saying, well, if I don't have AJ Brown and I operate like that, I've probably got to use one of my first three picks to fill
mhm,
in that X receiver spot. Whether, again, your flavor is Ted Hurst, Bryce Lance, not AJ Brown, Jacoby Lane, Malachi Fields, whoever it might be.
Dejan
Um,
or whatever from
right.
Ole Miss. Yeah,
Dejan Stribling. Yeah, you're
yeah,
probably
Sherman.
going to have to use, a top 100 asset to acquire that player. So it shows the opportunity cost of saying, all right, well, if we've got AJ Brown in our back pocket, we could go ahead and bring in a Jalen Kilgore or a Kyle Lewis or whoever it might be in that spot.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think this was definitely an excellent exercise. Just kind of demonstrating to people the different ways you can really legitimately attack the weaknesses on this roster and come out on the other side feeling good. Whether you go in with a defensive focus, whether you go in with an offensive focus, no matter what it is you think your priority is, we're going to
Right.
come out with a better roster on the other side of this draft. I really feel good about that.
Exactly. The only thing I'm nervous about is just checking Twitter or checking the YouTube comments because everybody despises everybody's mock drafts and they can't get it right. Just do your own mock draft, dude. I don't know what to tell you. None of us are going to be perfect. I can write up as many ideas as I think for my blogs of who I think is going to fit, what they should do. None of that's going to matter. They ultimately make the decision. There's also 30 other teams picking before you at 31. There's another team that picks right behind you. The entire thing can
Yeah.
get flipped on its head at any second. We don't know anything because there's way too many factors. But what it is a fun exercise of this is the strategy I think makes our team better, or a strategy that I think helps build these needs or helps so and so, like Drake May.
Right.
It can be numerous aspects of it. So it's just cool. It's cool to do mock, but just maybe not ridicule somebody's mock unless it's absolutely dog shit. Like if it's real bad, like I
Peter
drafted
Schrager, we're talking
I
about you. Peter
I
Schrager, we're talking about you. We're calling you out. That was a trash mock draft. Keelan Rutledge at 31 is ridiculous. I think that was supposed to be released on April Fool's Day. That's my
I
only defense.
the only thing I could think is he just likes the guy a lot and he is a good player. It's just like I just want to squeeze him in somehow. And I
Yeah.
hate when they do that because it's like, are you trying to boost their stock for somebody else? Or are you just like, I want people to know this guy's name? Well, if you want people to know this guy's name, just talk about him more on your show. Like
Yeah.
spend more time talking about the draft leading up to the draft, as opposed to, all right, we're just going to keep talking about the five guys. Oh, this class sucks, so we're not going to talk about it hardly ever at all. And like that's all ESPN and NFL does. And then when the draft comes around, oh, it's this big spectacle. It's on tonight. It's on tonight. Well, if you maybe I'll watch it. Maybe let's say a casual viewer, and maybe tunes in for a little bit before I go to bed. Sell me on this more of why I should watch it. Get me interested in all these picks. I don't think the ESPN NFL Network honestly is doing that good of a job, like
Well, and I
getting
think,
people
look,
interested.
I think that's representative of the sports coverage industry as a whole. Okay,
Exactly.
because at the end of the day, it's very hard to cover 32 teams and to know the ins and
Hmm.
outs, the needs, the wants, the holes, the trends, the likes, the dislikes, etc. of all 32 teams is just an impossible task. They're
Right.
constantly changing. It's hard enough to keep up with one team. So I think that really highlights the value of these, not to pat, I'm not going to break my arm patting myself on the back,
Right.
but guys like Foxborough Fellows and
Hmm.
Pat's Pulpit and whoever else it is that's putting out content that's team specific, because we really spend a lot of time looking at these specific teams. And we know, again, this is a draft of puzzle pieces. Okay. So
Right.
it's not enough to know what the pieces themselves look like. You've also got to know what the holes those pieces need to go in are. And so you get
Exactly.
these mock draft, these national mock draft guys, they know all the pieces and what those pieces are, but they don't necessarily know the holes that they're going in. You've got to match those up for it to work for everybody. You
Right.
cannot just sit there and say, well, this is a nice piece and jam it in the wrong hole. Okay.
Correct.
He's going to work out. He's going to work out. And, whoever it is, they're going to work out. They're going to work out in the right system, in the right place with the right coaching staff. This may be the place, but it might not too. And sometimes I think there's a lot of value in going with these team specific guys where it's like they know a lot more about the team. And again, I'm not even going to say me, but guys, and I'm definitely not talking about Boston Sports Radio, but
Yeah.
guys like Alex Barth or someone like that. So the podcasts, Greg Bedard, Nick
Hmm.
Cattles,
Taylor
Taylor
Kyles, Mike.
Kyles.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Mike, but Taylor
What?
Kyles. Taylor Kyles, I really like actually.
Yeah.
I
He's
think
very
Taylor
insightful.
Kyles brings all the value to that show, honestly, like in terms of like breakdowns and stuff like that. I just whatever. I don't know. But but no, like I really think there's a lot of value in that. So I
Yeah,
think it's
definitely, man.
important to highlight that, especially
It-
in the time that we recently saw the last few weeks where PFF went up in dust. And
right.
it's like this is a volatile industry at times. Support your local guys because they
Yeah,
need your support and they're bringing incredible value that these national guys will never be able to bring you.
it's just like support your local business, support your local sports podcast. Like that's
Yeah.
really it. Like shop local, like listen local. Like
Yeah.
if you can find some people on these smaller podcasts to consistently listen to and enjoy, as you mentioned, Foxborough Fellas, what you're doing is very insightful. Pat Stats has great shows as well on his end.
Yes.
It's a smaller, younger group of guys that I get to work with on occasion in a Patriots clubhouse. Like they're just fun about it. They kind of give like a radio element of what they do, where like what the f are we doing? Like a lot of commentary like that. But they're still just like they're just brutally honest of like the casual watcher kind of thing, which is cool. And I enjoy working with them. And like if we all like they come very prepared. They're just fun and just a cool group of guys to listen to. And sometimes some random f bombs get dropped, and it's just awesome. Like it's just like there'll be the most serious conversation, and then it's like, what the f was he thinking here? And it's just like out of the blue, like they're fun. So no matter what, just find some people you like to listen to, stick with them, and keep subscribing to them and following along. And it's just a cool way to go about it, man. So
Yeah.
I enjoy what you do. I mean, and I'm happy. I'm very appreciative of you having me back on twice, like 2 weeks in a row. It's great to keep doing this with you, man. And for me, like to toot my own horn, again, as I mentioned earlier of the show, I had a blog I just released a couple weeks ago. 31 What's the Move is featuring the options for Patriots, options for if we're going to trade up, trade back, what position should we target. I'm currently working on day 3, guys. Hoping to have that by this weekend, maybe into early next week. And then going into the draft, I'm going to have my final mock of what I think these guys are going to do, everything I'm hearing, break it down. And is this going to be logical? Is this going to be likely? Or am I going to have to pivot and play it safe and take some picks that, like an R. Mason Thomas, a Gabe Backus earlier? We'll just have to figure it out once it gets closer to the draft. But you can find that at patriotsdraftroom.com. You can follow me on X at PaperwavesDE, and I'll just let you guys know when it's up and running.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll throw links to both those things in the description when I put this up on YouTube. So you should be able to just click below and access those that way. So definitely go follow Tyler at PaperwavesDE. Check out the stuff he's been writing and the stuff he's going to be writing. It's quality stuff. It's a good listen. Check out some of these other Patriots podcasts here on YouTube. They're all great stuff, great listens, good guys. It's a good draft community. We're all really happy to be a part of it. Listen, guys, thanks for clicking. Thanks for listening. Put your comments, put your questions. Let us know how you feel like our mock draft did. And listen, who do you think did better? Okay. Who do you think won? All right. Not everything's a competition, but if it was, who won?
Just don't say anything mean about me, okay? Like I'm very sensitive. Randy can take it on the chin. I can't. I can't. I'll be thinking about it all day. So just break my heart.
All
easy.
the mean stuff. Listen, I am a masshole at heart. I feed off the hate. Okay.
I'm a Delaware surfer kid. Like, come on.
Yeah, no. I want all that mean shit. Okay. I feed off that like osmosis. Okay. It's fucking fuel. All right. Well, listen, with that, we're going to get out of here. It's late at night. We're recording this. We're going to release this in the morning. Thank you all for listening. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, show your friends, make them listen, tie them up in front of the TV and put it on. Okay. You're going to be doing them a favor. They'll thank you at the end. I promise. It's going to be totally okay. It's fine. You should do that. It's definitely a good idea. All right. Have a great night, guys. Bye.